All right, so it is the 12th of April. So I'm going to start with how I'm feeling, because this is where it gets interesting in terms of the whole waves and grief analogy. I told you on the last couple of weeks, I've been feeling really sort of low energy, low mood, and it was all based around Mike's birthday. And then within a week, it was the 6-month mark as well of losing him. So it was like a really, two significant firsts, really close together. Just obviously, it's just the way it's just worked out. So the birthday would have been one thing, but then on top of that, within 7 days, so it was the 22nd was the birthday and the 30th was the 6-month anniversary. So what, within 7-8 days, there was those two dates. I mentioned on last week's that it really took me back and surprised me how it affected me in terms of my energy levels. In fact, it was split into 2 weeks. So the first week was energy levels feeling super heavy. My habits went out. I didn't have the energy to do the successful good habits, even the small ones. I made sure I did tiny versions of them, but yeah, it was like I was back in January again when I had a slump then. So didn't even leave the house for a few days, and it was that type of thing. And then the following week after that was not low energy, but it was low mood. It was the anniversary, the 6-month anniversary. It affected me bad, really bad. But this is why these videos that I'm doing, the documentation of me doing this, is really useful for me. Hopefully it's useful for you if you're watching, in terms of understanding the process of grief isn't linear, and the waves, and how you can be okay at one point and then not at another. Because this week I feel great again. So I'm happy about that. I'm really happy about it. So this week, it was slowly but surely, but as of Wednesday properly, I was back up, getting up at 5 a.m, 5:30 a.m. At the gym for 6:30, 7. Habits back locked in again, and energy levels really good, feel good. So yeah, that's where I'm at. And I remember when I first did my first couple of face to camera videos like this, I was feeling really good. And you might remember on a couple of episodes or episodes that I did say that I wasn't sure whether to say I feel great or not. But actually, I was always going to say if I feel that way, I feel I can't do anything other than that. But it really is interesting now looking back at the last few weeks and being like, wow, I had a slump for 2 weeks and now I'm back. But in my view, if I can get 7-8 weeks of feeling really, really good, super high energy, super productive, all that type of stuff, then for an exchange of even a week or whatever it is, then I'll take that. That's really good. So yeah, I feel great. I feel just back locked in. I think, to be honest, with those grief, sort of that down dip period, there's still not full clarity, because you're like, would I have had it anyway? And then I'm labeling it as something, but that's something you'll never know. But I think in terms of still doing what I can in those moments is a lesson. So there was a period of maybe a few days to a week in that energy level dip that I just had to do the bare minimum in terms of things. But I didn't stop. I carried on doing the little tiny things. Yeah, and I think that all sort of compounds into sort of feeling as good as I can, as early as I can. That's what I think. So each day this week, up early, habits locked in, feeling good. And then yesterday had Richard, the therapist, come in, and we had a 2-hour conversation And honestly, it was brilliant. Like, so good, so good. It's 2 hours, so I'm going to split it into two, just so it's not a marathon. You can digest it a bit. But the conversations we had were absolutely brilliant. I think he's such a great guy, and he's also had a similar experience, losing his friend to suicide, and unfortunately losing his mum as well within, I think he said, 11 months of that happening. I think it was his mum first, I think. So to speak with someone who's got similar experiences in terms of loss, you can bounce back and forward on it. And also someone who's like an expert as well, in terms of like a counsellor, therapist, having a chat with him, and then recording it so I'm putting it out. So that might help you or people in general, just to sort of see if you're nervous about doing counselling, or you're a bit like, oh no, it's not for me. Might give you a bit of an insight as well in terms of, hey, it's not that scary. It's just a chat with someone who's sound and knows what they're talking about. And for me, I can't speak highly enough of it. We touched on a few interesting topics. I've written some notes down as usual, just so I don't forget. I probably shouldn't drink coffee, should I? So I've written a few notes down. So the few things I wanted to talk about was the energy changes this week versus the last few weeks, Mike's birthday and the 6-month mark. And then part of the conversation we had was, I'm interested to know, now I've gone through these like significant firsts, like his birthday and the 6-month mark, is what I'll be like at 12 months. I'm just interested to think, am I gonna, because I know what's to come, am I gonna be more prepared for it? Will I maybe not even get a slump? Was this coincidental that I got a slump around the date? That type of thing. But what came up in the conversation between Richard and I was about the slumps, or the whatever you want to call them, grief wave, the grief isn't linear, backwards and forwards, whatever analogy you sort of want to use with it. I sort of asked, and we had a conversation around how much it's really interesting how a date or something that you read, like in the corner of your computer screen where it says the date on it, or a calendar, how that impacts your body's reaction to it, and how much it has an impact on how you're feeling, your mood, your energy levels, all that type of stuff, especially when it comes to energy, because I think a lot of that is like subconscious, because I don't consciously choose to have low energy and struggle to get out of bed or whatever. It's just what's happening. But what we spoke about was, if I woke up, let's say if I woke up randomly and I didn't know what date I was going to wake up or whatever it is, and I woke up on the 12-month mark, but I didn't know it was the day, would I feel the slump or not? Or would I have that particular effect of what I've felt in the last couple of weeks? We didn't come to an answer because it's impossible to know, but it's a really interesting thing to think of. If you woke up on a desert island or even just in your day-to-day life and you didn't know what day it was and what date it was, would there be an internal biological clock that knows, or is it just an external signal to you that sort of triggers you and goes, okay, I need to be feeling like this now because it's 12 months or it's 6 months? It's just really fascinating. And I think it made me think even more so around, well, how much then are we being impacted day to day in our lives with these messages? Because if just knowing a date, which is essentially just a number, has an impact like that on your entire body, then what other messages are we getting that sort of has a big impact? Or even again, you could go to your thoughts. How much are your thoughts shaping your own reality that you don't know of? It's quite deep, that, in it. I'm not, I wish I was a deep enough thinker to be able to come up with answers on that, but I'm not. But it's just fascinates me that how, yeah, I had a period of 2 weeks and it was obviously Mike and my brother on my mind so much that it was just like, it just took me back. I always thought I was really pragmatic and Well, I think I am, but I didn't think anything like that would affect me. Like, oh, it's the 22nd of March, so therefore significant date, or 30th of March, 6-month anniversary, you're feeling like low energy and struggling. I always thought, honestly, like, what's the difference between the 29th of September and the 30th, or the day before the birthday or after? But it has had an effect. And that's where I've learned a lot about myself, I think. I suppose you don't truly know. It sounds cheesy. You don't truly know who you are, I suppose, in terms of what you can handle and how your body reacts and how you react to things until you've gone through it. You'd rather not have to experience it, but you sort of really get to know, wow, that's interesting. Didn't think my body would react like that, or I would react like that. So yeah, I try and, as much as possible, look at it with a sense of curiosity. That's what I try and do. I think it's a good way of potentially separating yourself from it. Like, I'm not experiencing this. It's like, isn't it interesting that my body is experiencing this right now? What's going on under the sort of the hood, as it were? And that's sort of how I try and approach it. I don't know if it's the best approach. It seems to work for me. But yeah, and I think also as well, what Richard said to me yesterday, one thing that always stuck with me was by even doing this, even me doing this, you bring in what's in your subconscious, conscious forward. And we had a chat on that as well yesterday where we spoke about it. And it's like, this is what I mentioned on last week's, where it's good for me. And sometimes it's hard for me to determine why it's good for me. But hearing that from him, from an expert counselor therapist, of you're bringing what's in your subconscious mind, conscious. And because you're doing that, you can therefore deal with what you're aware of rather than just not knowing what's going on. So I just found that's why it's so useful. Honestly, it's worth, I'm editing it today. It's 2 hours, so I'll do an hour and then another hour. It's honestly worth a watch. It's really good. It sounds like it's because of him more so than me. Of course, I'm going to say it's good, aren't I? But I enjoyed it. But I think it's valuable because, I don't know, even if it's interesting because I find it fascinating in terms of what he's got to say, but also like it might help, make it feel a bit more normal, like doing therapy. If you're something you're like, oh, I don't really fancy doing it. It's like, that's all it is. It's chatting and chatting. It's chatting about yourself as well. If you like talking about yourself, it's not a bad thing, which you get to learn about yourself. Okay. Anything else? I think that might be a lot of it done. I've only done 14 minutes, but I did have more. Let me just check what I've got. I do try and not edit these videos because I'd rather just sit down and post it as is. Let me have a think. There was other stuff. I've come up with an idea. So I mentioned 2 weeks ago when I had the energy slump and I was struggling, my habits went out and I couldn't do my daily habits. Like, and I've got to be honest with it, because otherwise I'll just be, it'd just be weird if I just lied and said, oh yeah, I did. I carried on still and battled through and look how resilient and disciplined I am. It's like, no, like there's moments where you don't have the energy for it and that's it. You don't have the energy for doing super healthy stuff if you have the flu or something. If you're like bedbound, sick, resilience isn't going to get you out of that. You need to rest. So that is very important to acknowledge. So that's why I'm saying I didn't do the habits. But I came up with an idea. Maybe it's an original idea. I don't know. I haven't Googled it or anything, so this might exist already. But if it does, fine. But I came up with the idea of minimum viable effort. Minimum viable effort being making things ridiculously easy to do, so they don't feel like effort. And psychologically, you know that you've taken a small step forward. So we're talking about habits. So it's I try and avoid repeating things I've read or saying things that people who are experts that know way more than me, or people have done studies or whatever. I'll try and avoid repeating what they say, because you might as well just go to them directly to get expert opinion. But what I'm an expert in is knowing what works for me. So even without maybe the science behind it, I can say, okay, right, I do these and these things, and they have an impact. I know for sure right now I'm sat here feeling really good in a tragic situation, but I felt really, really bad 2 weeks ago. Okay, so that's the reality. So what I've learned is, in terms of trying to compound things as much as possible, like stacking, I've mentioned it before, stacking the deck in my favor as much as I can. So when I talk about the minimum viable effort, I'm talking about, I like to say, read some information, books, things that are positive. I do the bare minimum when needed. So like the Daily Stoic, I'll read that, just one page. What else would be like minimum viable effort? Like with, say, for example, like this, I'll go back and maybe make smaller little clips, like on my Instagram, like YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels and that type of thing. It takes a bit of time to do that, because you've got like maybe 20 minutes, 25, 30 minutes of raw footage to then go, okay, what am I going to chop up and pick out here? And usually I'll spend an hour and a half going through and just clipping it up. But the minimum viable effort for me is like, okay, well, I'll just do one. It just takes nothing. I'll just decide to do 20 seconds worth. Or yeah, as I said, like it could be just literally just reading one page of a book. It could be the gym. Fortunately, I have a gym in my building, so I'm very, very lucky there. So I just commit to saying I'll do 10 minutes. I'll do 10 minutes. And the amount of stuff you can do in 10 minutes is crazy when you really, really think about it. 10 minutes, you can get a lot done in. I don't know if you've ever done any sort of like HIIT training. If you do 3 minutes of HIIT, like crazy intense exercise for 3 minutes, you can be ruined. So that's the way I try and look at it a little bit, is breaking it down to such small chunks. And the thing is, if you've got like a big task to do, or maybe even if it's work related, you need to do a presentation, and you're procrastinating because it's a big task, you're going to have to do that very first minimal thing anyway. So let's say if it is a presentation, just open up a new document and name it and just do that. Because psychologically, I think, again, probably check experts about this, psychologically, you've got a home for it. You've made a step. And then maybe next time you go into it, you know, label the first couple of slides or something. So that's the thing. What I've been thinking about a lot is like minimum viable effort, and how you can utilize that to keep momentum even when you're not feeling that great. And the thing is, yeah, if you're going to do mammoth tasks or 2 hour, 3 hour sessions, I do music, for example. The thought of sitting down sometimes and doing a 2 hour creative music production session is too much, and I'll procrastinate and won't do it. Or I would procrastinate and won't do it. But then I say, well, I can do 10 minutes, can't I? Like, who hasn't got 10 minutes, really? And if you're going to do a 2 hour session, you're going to have to do the first 10 minutes anyway. So that's how I work. I find it really, really helps. The other thing I do as well, just in terms of that, is in terms of like, say, educational stuff or things that are good, I'll stick on in the background if I'm doing, I don't know, making toast, or I don't know, whatever. Like if I'm making toast or just walking around getting ready, for example, I'll have something on in the background. So I've mentioned before, like Headway or Blinkist or something like that, an audiobook or something. And the time is passing anyway whilst I'm already getting ready or whatever, making toast, whatever it is. The time's already passing, so I'm absorbing useful, good information whilst I go effortlessly. So that's the way I try and look at it. Is maybe it's an original thought, maybe it's not. I don't know. Let me just check if there's anything else. I think we've done 20 minutes, which is not bad. I think last week was like 25 odd minutes. So I think I've covered most of the things. Yeah, I think I've covered most of the things. I'm sure there's more, but obviously don't want this to go too long. Yeah, long and short of it is the grief wave analogy, and the grief isn't linear, and all that is real. Like in my experience anyway. Even before, actually, I got up this morning at like 5:30. Also, when I say that, I'm not being all like, look at me, I get up at 5:30. It's just what I do. The reason why, actually, I lived in Australia for 7 years, and I used to get up to watch Liverpool games, watch the football, and it was usually on. A lot of games would be on about 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. And so I'd be getting up in the dark watching the games in the UK from Australia. So that has had a big impact on my sleeping patterns and getting up early. So I'm not being all like, look how great I am getting up that early. It's been embedded into me of 7 years of living abroad. But I got up, and then went and got a coffee, went to the gym, went and got a coffee. And as I was walking back from a coffee, I was thinking to myself, this is why it's crazy, this whole journey. I was thinking to myself, like, oh, how lucky am I? Like, I get to get up, go to the gym, go and get a coffee, have good chats with the people in the coffee shop. And it's just like such a good start to the morning. Walk through Manchester on the way back. It's sunny now. It's getting into the summer, or it's spring, and it's a bit lighter. You start to feel a bit more energetic, and then just boom, out of nowhere, guilt, absolute guilt for 5 minutes about Mike. Out of nowhere, so much so I physically put my hand on my chest and was like, it was, yeah, I felt it, and it just came from like that, and it was a thought. It was just a thought of like, oh, I should have, messaged him or something like that. But then I was like, right, this is you have to talk to yourself about it. I go, no, what? Yes, it's there, but what use is this feeling of guilt? What use is it? That's what Richard said to me yesterday. Yeah. I won't go into too much what he said, because he's better at it than me, and I don't want to do a bad job. But yeah, it's mad. Like, I feel, as I said, feel brilliant now, but today, just boom, guilt came out of nowhere. So it's not just I'm all great now, but yeah, I did think to myself, Mike wouldn't want me feeling like this. Yeah, I did think that. Yeah, he wouldn't, would he? So yeah, he wouldn't. So I was just thinking, then he'd probably want me to a little bit, and then be like, actually, go on, you're all right now, carry on. Like he'd be a bit like that. Come on, give me a moment for a sec. But yeah, I will have that forever. But it's sort of, I'm getting better at recognizing it and going, okay, step back. Okay, that's interesting that the guilt has come in. That's what I'm trying to do. I think it's quite like meditative way of viewing your thoughts, stepping back and being the observer. So that's something that I suppose I'm just naturally training without actually trying to. Yeah, one of the things my Richard said to me was about when I moved cities to London, to countries to Sydney, back to the UK, that each time I've said goodbye to a life or people and rebuilt again, that I might have unintentionally trained myself to say goodbyes more so than if I hadn't moved like that and rebuilt again. And I think with the guilt thing coming up today, and standing back or metaphorically standing back and observing that and going, that's interesting, for me seems to be a good way to go, that's interesting, and look at it rather than sort of just fully feel it. I don't know if that's healthy. I don't know. I think it feels like it works for me anyway. Yeah, I don't want to give advice on that, because I'm not I'm not an expert at all. I'm just talking about my experience. But yeah, that's been 25 minutes. So 25 minutes of rambling again. Yeah, as I mentioned, this is really helpful for me because it gets what's in my subconscious, in my consciousness. I talk it out. I'm checking in each week on how my last week's been. Means that in the week I'm taking notes a bit more about what I'm going to come into this week as well. So it means that I'm consistently checking in with how I'm feeling, writing down ideas, looking for good things to talk about, and then talking about on here. So yeah, that's why it's helpful for me. Hopefully it's helpful for you. As always, if you are going through a tough time or struggling, or even if you're not, and yeah, if you just, however you're doing, I just hope you're doing all right. And thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next one.